A spiritual renaissance. As a preface to my presentation, I think it's important to highlight the three aspects of my journey that I had set out as goals. I needed to rest my mind and my heart and my soul. 2, I wanted to experience spiritual touchstones that grounded my appreciation of God in my life. Having time with my spouse and family and friends. And 3, I wanted to explore my creative and contemplative side. And so it began. We had been waiting for this moment almost 2 years, and finally it was upon us. Our journey began at the train station in Rochester, heading to Toronto. We had a stopover in Niagara Falls where we had to leave the train with all our belongings and go through customs. We were told that our Canadian train would be arriving soon. To our amazement, it was the same train we were asked to depart. Now had been transformed into a Canadian line train. One could say it was our first miracle. We left Toronto the next evening to Heathrow Airport and arrived taking the tube into London. We spent our first week in England mostly enjoying the sights and doing some bucket list items that really made our hearts sing. For example, like attending Wimbledon. Granted, that meant spending 8 hours in the queue waiting for admission to the park. But it was worth the wait. We even met a very nice family from Spain who kindly lent us a poncho as we experienced a passing shower. Waiting for me surely was an exercise in patience and self-growth. Another bucket list item was to visit Westminster Abbey. In its rich history and meaningful symbol for all who hold Anglicanism dear. While in England, I thought about the meaning of Sabbath, resting from the usual, knowing that I am being called to find that solace I have been wanting and missing. My question, where do I find my Sabbath? Where do I find my rest? How does my soul get replenished? Do I need a pilgrimage? Or can I, even in the midst of this hustle and bustle of the city, find my solace, my Sabbath, my rest? Striking to the eye are pockets of women dressed in the full black burqas, which frankly is rather striking on a warm sunny day. Thoughts of terrorism crossed my mind, fueled by my own ignorance and prejudice of a culture so vastly different than my own. We had a great experience happen upon us as it began to rain, and once again we were caught without being prepared. No umbrella, so we ran under the bus stop, and soon a whole family of Middle Easterners darted in with us. Although we did not share a language, we shared a common space. Waiting for the rain to stop, I was pleasantly surprised to see the interaction they had as a family, caring for their grandmother in a wheelchair, and this little boy wanting to break free from his mother's grasp and splash around in the puddles. It was comical as we watched this family of 5 try to remain dry with all of their bags, which all got wet and were promptly piled on top of Grandma in the wheelchair. They were all chuckling at the sight. My heart began to see that these folks were so much more like me than they were different. Finding the capacity to appreciate the little moments in the sometimes mundane, reminding me of the choices before us of choosing grace in the midst of turmoil, stressing the positive when all you hear is negativity, knowing that it is okay to turn off the news and find the joy in the present. Bienvenue à Paris! We rode into Paris via a very effective and speedy train. What does one do in Paris? Well, we toured. We visited Notre Dame and took in the artwork. Even stayed for Mass. The major fascinating thing about Notre Dame, as we all know, is that it burned down. Well, it was an amazing feat to see how beautiful and how efficient and in such record time how they rebuilt it. It is fascinating, beautiful, and a spectacular sight to see. We were very touched by the whole experience of being there, and just amazed at the craftsmanship that went into rebuilding it. Then we walked to the Louvre with the hope of getting in, but that is not going to happen given the summer tourist season, needing tickets at least 2 or 3 weeks in advance. But we did walk to the Eiffel Tower. We were so proud of ourselves that we completed such a long walk. Exhausted, we returned by boat to the hotel and Mary's favorite restaurant. The waterway of the Seine gives access to many museums and sites, and so we really took another day to take and look at a variety of places, and one being the D'Orsay Museum, which again holds beautiful sculptures and artwork, and it was just an amazing and beautiful sight. There's indeed a quaintness and beauty about this city, and a certain spirit that holds sacred the past, and yet flares up in seeking a future that is more inclusive and multicultural. Our next stop was Grenoble. We went on quite the excursion, arriving in Grenoble in a train from Paris. Grenoble is quite the city. We enjoyed learning about it and what it offered. From there, we took a bus up the mountain to La Salette. Humorists once commented that the Virgin Mary appeared in tears at La Salette because she was lost on her way to Lourdes. But having visited this sacred site, I would say that she knew exactly where to appear, as this breathtaking mountainscape left us in complete awe and the beauty of God's creation. I found myself uniquely touched by this experience, having once been a member of the missionary order. It was familiar with the statues of the apparition, and the story was found everywhere in various languages. We attended Mass and were welcomed, and a certain joy emanated from the pilgrims attending. Like many a shrine, La Salette brought people together from far and wide, people who seemed to be drawn to the Virgin weeping and the message of reconciliation, ultimately to their own personal conversions. I could not help, while there, thinking of the women of our world who are suffering, the women of war-torn countries like Ukraine and Gaza, the poor of Central and South America. Next, we were off to the Roses Beach Resort, offering a beautiful view of the Mediterranean Sea, and along with beaches and tourists, a mixture of French, Italian, Lebanese, Moroccan, Indian, and Spanish. There have been great opportunities as well there for Mary to be with her family, as her brother and sister-in-law live within a half an hour away. We spent a day or two with them as they brought us for a three-hour trip back to France to visit on this beautiful mountain, a fortress called Carcassonne near Toulouse, France, where some of the scenes of the TV show Thrones were filmed. Similar to the towers of London, however, it is known for its cruelty and torture during the Inquisition. We are indeed an odd lot that we can take something so horrendous and turn it into a museum piece. Perhaps that is something to ponder. I suppose there are other aspects of our lives, of our past and present, that we would like to sweeten or even change the narrative of in order to embrace the future. A future that will be unblemished by the mistakes of our past. Is that our hope? Or can we embrace that the very paradox that is us, made in the image and likeness of God, means the good of us, the bad of us, and the ugly of us, all in all called to love and to be loved. This picture represents a girl that I had seen when I was walking at the beach resort. I call her Denalia. She sits on the sidewalk at this beach resort hotel. Her hair is thinning and showing signs of malnutrition. Her body wearing the signs of living on the streets with bruises and blisters and bug bites. Her feet darkened with the soot from the street. Her sandals have worn down with holes on the bottom of her sole. Her cup lies before her. She accepts graciously any coins that come her way. She has no idea what she represents with regard to statistical poverty that encompasses our world. She relies on her fragile body and adorable, hungry eyes to be enough to catch the interest of a kind soul, or a guilt-ridden tourist, or a philanthropic soul, in order to eat that day, and maybe buy enough for her mother and siblings. Off to Madrid, where we had a time with the nieces of Mary's family, and we gathered for a wonderful steak dinner at Mary's niece's restaurant and bar. A chance to catch up with each other as to how we are family together. I was particularly moved by some of the family sharing their stories of survival in different crises of health and welfare affecting their lives and bringing them to this place and this point in their journey. We all have struggles and in life, yet it makes quite a difference in how these mistakes or challenges can affect one's future life choices. For those whose economic survival is at risk to being turned over and resulting in major transitions in life. Opportunity comes through hard work and an openness and trust, and sometimes with family willing to share their meager resources to keep another member of the family from falling apart. Our trip then brought us to Segovia and Toledo. Both were another opportunity to engage history and wander in our wondering of how life must have been like back in the Middle Ages. Segovia had a real spirit about it. I felt real comfortable there for some reason, with its beautiful aqueduct and cobblestone streets. The multi-faith community who literally built upon each other, relating a history, a people reaching out to God, with cathedrals and palaces. Amidst the tours and tour guides and all the incredible views, it was a wonderful spot. Here's where Mary went back to the States, and I flew back to England. I spent a few days in London, of course, in airports way outside of the city, requiring a train to get back to the West End of London. But it was nice getting back, and I went to the Plough, which was our favorite dining spot there. It was funny how we got to feel at home. I got to feel at home in such a strange land. I took in the beauty of the gardens around Buckingham Palace and enjoyed the beautiful weather. I went to Les Miserables, which was a dream to see a Broadway play in London. Albeit nosebleed seats and this big, tall, red-headed guy somewhat blocked my view. I have seen this play in Detroit before, but found this more intense. The powerful message it gives about humanity that left me inspired and with goosebumps. Next in my solo journey was getting on a train to Mirfield, a town outside of Leeds, which is about 3 hours north of London. The monastery was a beautiful old building built in 1480 and very much encapsulated the Benedictine model of prayer and work. I was most impressed with the chanting, which was rich, and the community commitment was evident. Given it was a Ignatian-style retreat, we kept silence for the week. My director was actually the abbot of the house, and he led me with a few scriptures and reflections. It was a great time of rest, a time to focus on my relationship with God, and I got a lot of sleep there. In fact, I slept through the night, probably the first time in years. Following my retreat, it was off to Scotland. And I arrived in a place called Dundee. And to my amazement, my hotel was actually sitting on the top of the train station. So from there, I was able to go off to do day trips and not worry about getting lost. Dundee is an old city that I'm not sure, other than I wanted something away from the touristy stuff. But it had its own things to occupy myself. There was a castle and a fishing village nearby, and also the Discovery Museum and ship were right next to the hotel. People, by and large, in Scotland are very friendly and accommodating. They do have a very heavy accent, however, which is at times hard to understand, but like other languages, you work at it and finally you begin to communicate. I went into the city, into the public square where I would often go for breakfast, and this one picture offers a reflection of this pigeon that showed up on my breakfast table and was eating my scraps. The architecture here is gorgeous and unique throughout and just really beautiful. I then went to Edinburgh, which was again the place to go if you want to get in touch with the culture of Scotland, and it was an amazing view of a lot of the different highlights of Scottish life. A place called the Royal Mile, which again that particular time was featuring the Fringe Festival was happening there, so there were street performers all the way up and down. On one end of the Royal Mile lies the castle, and then on the other end is the palace. So it's just a beautiful testimony. As you see in the picture, there's a little crown on a pew. That was a church that the Queen used to attend when she was visiting Edinburgh. Overall, I'm beginning to see some patterns emerging of what I carry around with me, confronting the unexpected. I find particularly have been challenged by loneliness, and I find I particularly have been challenged by recognizing or discovering loneliness and its cousin solitude, impatience and yet detachment, anxiety and fear, and liberation and inner peace. I've also been incredibly surprised by the graciousness of people, especially from those whom I did not expect it. Upon arrival back in the States, I took a week to get over a cold and jet lag. I've also got the opportunity to visit with my son and our family together at Cornell, where he treated us to lunch and a beautiful visit to the waterfall. At the end of the month, we got to bring my daughter back to college, where she entered her new apartment off campus, and that was a real fun, and it was a great deal, or a big deal. September began with a retreat in Connecticut at Mercy by the Sea, which is run by the Sisters of Mercy, where I was blessed to be given the most coveted room in the house, called the Tower Room. It was 3 flights up, and it was also known as the Henry Nouwen Room. And Henry Nouwen is a very famous Christian writer, and I felt privileged there because 3 walls of the room were windows off, so you could view the sound, and the beautiful sunrises every morning was just an added treat. My next stop was Fairhaven, Massachusetts, which is next door to Acushnet, Mass, where I grew up. There I rented a little cottage and was able to cook my own meals, which was a lot of fun, and also work on my art. The following week went to Cape Cod, and we had a family reunion. Concluded that everyone there seemed to be getting old, except for myself. In conclusion, I would like to express my gratitude once again to all of you for allowing me to have this very privileged opportunity, and especially to our sabbatical team that helped to put shape to this great adventure. In many ways, my heart has been renewed, refreshed, and restored. This song I'm going to close this with a poem I wrote while I was on retreat in Mercy Center. I entitled the poem, A Presence. Calming, beckoning stillness. A stillness that soothes my weary soul. A presence that words failed to account. Abiding, awakening, settling. Within each and every breath, outwardly glimmering like the sunrise upon the sound. A presence with the universe as its labyrinth. Constant, playful, persistent, like the waves teasing the shore. Paradoxically intimate, yet vast and beyond my reach or desire to possess. Sustained, seen, loved. A presence that my spirit finds its rest. A presence that calms, beckons, and soothes my very weary soul. Thank you.